But you have already teased this guy a lot, so why don't we go on in there with Cole Kmet? I thought he flashed a lot of upside, certainly one of the highest ranked tight ends coming in the last class, and it is a tough position to transition to as a rookie. Historically, we've seen that, but he still showed some good stuff, especially towards the end of the year. At the same time, Jimmy Graham still remains with the team, which could cap his ceiling. What are your thoughts on this situation? Do you think Cole Kmet could break out this year, even with Graham around? And what are your kind of expectations for him?
Yeah, I think Kmet is like kind of the ultimate sleeper for this team because, like if you're in a fantasy draft with Chicago people, he's going to be overdrafted. If you're in a draft with like nobody from Chicago, I think he's going to be underdrafted. So like you got to find that sweet middle spot for him because like there's a lot of excitement here about him. He's a local guy. He, extremely athletic, but just not utilized properly last year. And it took a long time for him to get into the offense, and the offense was kind of a mess when he first got on the field. But they're very excited about him, similar to Darnell Mooney. You get that second-year bump in all of his stats. And he didn't have 300 yards receiving last year.
Right.
So, like, I think the guy can certainly double what he did last year. And this is somebody who was their top pick in the 2020 draft. They feel really good about him. And going back to that, not having a really solid number 3 receiver, like, Kmet, that's where he steps in. The Jimmy Graham thing's interesting. I don't think anything ticked off Bears fans more that the Bears decided to keep Jimmy Graham and cut Kyle Fuller and cut Charles Leno when Graham counts $7 million against the cap. I get it. I really do. I was surprised by it. The thing about Jimmy Graham is he was a touchdown monster last year.
Right.
And like if they're just going to give him 20 snaps a game, just limiting it to third downs and red zone, and he can still win those one-on-one balls with a linebacker or a safety. Like, why not? I kind of understand it. So I think that he could vulture some touchdowns from Kmet for sure. Like, Kmet could be one of those guys who gets up to 600 yards receiving, 650 yards receiving, but only like 3 touchdowns. And you're thinking for a tight end, like that's tough. Like, I could see like that, like him being a disappointment in some ways from that regard because of Jimmy Graham. And Jimmy Graham could have 380 yards and 6 touchdowns, like that's just the way that they're going to go. But I do think that they have really, really high hopes and big plans for what Kmet could do in this offense. Like, Travis Kelce is an unfair comparison, but like that's the guy that Matt Nagy is thinking about. That's the guy that was the engine that makes that Chiefs offense go. And you think about the similarities in terms of their build and what they can do, Kmet could do some of the things Kelce can do, just athletically speaking. It's just, how can he work in the offense? How can he, he's not anywhere near the experience level of Kelce and the savvy of Kelce and all those things. But just to give you an idea of like how the Bears could theoretically feature him in the offense, like that's the type of level they want to get to one day. It's not going to be this year, probably might not be next year, but like one day they would, like, their ideal is that Kmet becomes that kind of guy. So like that's the type of player that we're talking about here. So they're going to be getting him a lot of targets.
Very intriguing for sure. Even in like redraft, it sounds like there's certainly a role yardage wise, potentially touchdown wise, depending on Jimmy Graham's usage down there. But certainly in dynasty leagues, it sounds like this guy has a really good long tail to him, and he's going dirt cheap in dynasty leagues right now. So if there is a Travis Kelce potential ceiling, I mean, certainly that's like the highest possible par you could ever hit, but anything even 3/4 of Travis Kelce down the line, I think fantasy owners would be ecstatic with. So that's something for you guys listening in dynasty leagues. Like Cole Kmet, sometimes probably not out there in a ton of waiver wires dynasty wise, but last round pick or so, he's going late. I think I snagged him in mine actually, so I'm pretty pumped to hear that for sure. Very intriguing. Is there a world that like Jimmy Graham just is non-existent and Kmet just kind of eats in the red zone too? Like, he is pretty big, right?
Oh, for sure. And like, if you look at their snap counts last year, it was like Graham was up here for those watching and Kmet was down here. And then eventually they kind of came and met, and then Kmet passed him. Like, so, that gave you a sense of like Kmet's going to be the guy who's probably out there a ton and Jimmy Graham not as much. So yeah, I mean, you could see Kmet this is a team that for years now has talked about utilizing 12 personnel more and having 2 tight ends in the field. And because what we just talked about, like the not having that really reliable number 3 receiver and feeling really good about Kmet, like maybe this is the year they finally do it and take advantage of those 2 guys. So yeah, I could certainly see Kmet like having that potential. I just like I just caution because like Graham's still here for a
Yeah.
reason. Like they're paying him a lot of money. They're going to expect him to eat when they get near the goal line. But as you said, like I think Kmet from a long-term view has a lot of potential. Like I'm really interested to see what he does this year because I'm confident they're going to target him a lot or at least try to get him involved a lot. I just don't know what that looks like yet.
What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.